Greetings Sanbonani and welcome to Chris Presents. Before we delve into the legal side of things today, I want to take the time to explain the purpose of the image we selected today for the thumbnail. It's a dandelion. The purpose is because it reminds me of the children of the Vaal tragic event that happened on the 19th of January 2026. Originally the idea was to use a sunflower, but the dandelion just felt right. It represents freedom. The freedom of those young spirits roaming, running around, laughing, hugging each other, and just feeling love in heaven. To the families who have suffered this tragic loss, we send our deepest condolences to you. We are very, very sorry for the pain you are carrying right now. You are in our constant thoughts and prayers. Pepisani. Now, today's discussion goes a little deeper than law. It goes a little deeper than just matching rules to facts. From the jump, I'd like to kindly bring this to your notice. There isn't a court judgment. This discussion isn't a judgment or a pointing of fingers. As the saying goes, whoever casts the first stone is without sin. And this is not about casting stones. The analysis herein comes after the NPA had changed its charges from culpable homicide to murder. This came as a great shock to us because it left us wondering and curious and having questions as to what does the state have? What do they know? All we can do is trust. They are the experts. Today's analysis will be conducted using a modified, simulated legal analysis of FILAC, wherein we'll touch on the facts in which I need to mention are simulated based on information that's available in the public domain. We'll touch on the issues, the laws that apply to these simulated facts, the applications of the laws to these facts, and finally, a conclusion. The conclusion being the potential court order when we put everything together. Now let's look at the facts. Everything started on the morning of January 19th, 2026. Two drivers were on the R553 Golden Highway, Vanderbijlpark Road. The one was in a truck, probably going to work. The other one was in a minibus, doing something so many parents rely on, transporting children to school. Now I need to be very clear. The facts are based on the video footage from a dash cam which was released to the public. This is not an official report. We are not experts in accident reconstruction. We're just talking about what we saw on a camera. On this morning, the taxi driver started doing risky moves. He was trying to overtake 3 or 4 cars. Going off the video footage alone, it seems like the visibility was not that good that morning. And at the same time, there was a truck approaching in the opposite direction. Going off the video footage that was released to the public, it looks like there was a gap of about 200 to 250 meters wherein the drivers started to discover each other. We calculated or estimated that distance by looking at the number of cars between the truck driver and the minibus driver. It was the length of 6 to 7 cars. Now in that distance, although not a lot, but safety measures could have been taken. Mitigating measures could have been taken to reduce the impact of that collision. The unfortunate part of this accident was that at that moment, the last car in which the minibus driver was set to overtake, it moved to the side and made way for the minibus driver to get back on lane. But in that final moment, in that split second, both minibus driver and the truck driver moved to the exact same direction at the exact same time. It's like that awkward moment wherein you're walking and someone is approaching you. And then as you are about to move to make space for them, they move at the exact same direction. But let's get back to the program. We weren't there in those vehicles that morning. We don't know the pressures, the fears, the feelings and emotions that those drivers experienced in that moment. People make decisions based on the information they have at the time. The hurtful reality of this all is that the only person who did not have a say in those decisions were the children. Investigations began, and it was reported to the public that the charges would be culpable homicide and reckless driving. But the NPA has since, through its spokesperson, reported to the public that after perusing the docket, it believes it has prima facie evidence to substitute the charges from culpable homicide to murder. Now that we have outlined the facts of this case, let's delve into the issues. Now, if you were in the criminal law class of 2019 at Wits University, shout out the 2019 class, I imagine the first word that popped into your head when you heard these facts was Humphreys. Now, the Humphreys judgment is a seminal judgment in South African law. That judgment's facts are almost identical to these facts. Both of them involve a minibus driver transporting children to school, and that minibus driver deciding to take risky moves, overtaking about 3 to 4 cars, and that maneuver resulting in a tragic end. I do have a strong feeling that the Humphreys judgment will be a North Star in this case. Now, based on everything we have, based on everything that we've seen in the public domain reported by various media outlets, and cases before this one, the following issues are what the court will need to grapple with. Number 1, was it intent or was it negligence? Now, essentially here, the question that the court must ask is this. At the time in which the driver started those reckless moves, did he, subjectively speaking, did he foresee the fatal crash, think to himself, fuck it, we ball, and proceed? Or did he just fail to act as what a reasonable person in his situation would have done? This question is what draws the line between culpable homicide and murder. The second issue the court will need to decide on is the fuck it, we ball dilemma. Now remember that 200 to 250 meters we spoke about earlier? Essentially here the court must determine as to whether during that distance did the driver know of the dangers of his act and still decided to proceed anyway? Or did he honestly, although wrong, did he honestly believe that his skills would get him out of that situation? In Gen Z terms, this is where the driver, or the court, is asking the driver, when have you shot that shot? Is that the shot you take? That's not the shot you take. That's essentially the question for the second issue. Thirdly, is that of causation. Now with this one, you can go check out our legal simulation or Pulp Fiction legal simulation video we dropped previously, wherein we discussed causation in detail. But in this matter, in terms of the causation, the court must decide as to whether did the reckless move of the minibus driver cause, or was it the direct cause of those 14 counts of murder? Or did the two drivers moving towards the exact same direction of the road at the exact same time, did that event create a new intervening event that broke the chain of responsibility? The fourth issue is that of reckless driving. Essentially here the court is going to look at the National Traffic Road Act, specifically asking itself, was the driver in willful disregard of safety? The fundamental question being, was the driving reckless? This question, it doesn't matter as to whether the crash happened or not. It looks at strictly as to whether was the driving reckless. And the last inquiry or the issue is that of attempted murder. With this one, we're not sure, but we've heard reports mentioning or citing attempted murder as one of the counts or one of the charges in which will be brought against the accused. Now with this charge, this one will depend on how the intent inquiry is decided by the court. These are difficult questions to answer. These are the types of questions that keep legal scholars and judges up at night. Now that we've discussed the issues that the court will need to grapple with, and we have an understanding of what the law is that applies herein, let's put everything together and let's run the simulation. Essentially here, for the court to find the accused guilty of the crime, it will need to satisfy itself of 4 requirements. The first one being the act. The question here is, was the act voluntary? In terms of looking at this requirement, we can see from the facts that the accused acted voluntarily because he knew what his actions was. He took those decisions to start making those reckless moves and start overtaking or attempting to overtake those cars. His muscles was informed by his mind that they must do that. Therefore, yes, we can safely say that yes, the requirement of conduct or act has been met. The second requirement is that of causation. Now you remember the causation inquiry is split in 2. It's factual causation and it's legal causation. Let's start with factual causation. You remember that but-for test we discussed in our previous Pulp Fiction legal simulation? We're going to conduct that exact same inquiry here wherein we ask, but for the driver performing those reckless moves and trying to overtake those cars, would the children be with us today? And we can safely say that the kids would be here with us if the driver did not attempt to perform those moves. Therefore, factually speaking, based on everything, the driver is the factual cause of the murders. Let's move on to the legal causation inquiry of the causation inquiry. Excuse me. Essentially, with the legal causation inquiry, the first thing we need to ask is, did that event whereby the 2 drivers moved to the exact same side of the road at the exact same time, does that event have a possibility of absolving the minibus driver? Probably not. Because if we look at it from an adequate cause test, we can see that based on human experience, we can safely say that any person who is set for a collision course, that person will attempt to swerve at a direction in which they believe avoids the collision. That's what the truck driver did. The heartbreaking thing is that at the exact same time in which the truck driver attempted to avoid the collision, the minibus driver went towards the exact same direction at the exact same time as the truck driver. Therefore, we can safely conclude based on that inquiry that the minibus driver is the legal cause of the deaths. Now, the third requirement in which the court will need to satisfy itself on is that of unlawfulness. The question here being, was the act unlawful? It's essential for me to say that in law, an act is unlawful unless there's a good excuse, a ground of justification, for example, self-defense or necessity. A video on grounds of justification will be dropped in due course. But let's apply that question in the facts herein. From looking at the facts, there was no attack that required self-defense from the driver. There wasn't a necessity that forced the driver to perform those moves and put those lives in danger. Therefore, we can safely conclude that the act was unlawful. The fourth and final requirement is culpability, the big question. This is where the court will need to ask itself, did the driver intend for this to happen, or was he negligent? Essentially asking itself, for the state to prove murder, the state must determine or must establish that the driver foresaw the possibility of the crash happening, reconciled himself of that risk by having a fuck it we ball mentality come as it may, and proceeded to do what he did. Or was he negligent? Wherein, did he foresee the possibility of the risk happening? But he honestly believed, even if wrong, he honestly believed that his skills will get him out of this situation. As we wrap up today's video, I'd like to reiterate one more time that this is not a judgment. It's just a legal simulation. We're not here to report as to exactly what the NPA is doing, what the defense attorney has planned behind closed doors. This is just a simulation. It's a simulation wherein we extracted information already available in the public domain and formulated our simulated facts. From there, we were able to extract the issues that the court would need to decide on and the laws that apply. And by applying those laws to the simulated facts, we were able to come with our final opinion. It's just that, an opinion. The views expressed in this video does not carry any legal authority. They do not represent the full and final state of the facts. There's probably an ocean of information that we are not aware of, that only the experts have. And therefore, we'll leave it to them to do their jobs. Thank you for joining me on Chris Presents today. As you know, the purposes of these videos are to help us understand the law as the public. I'm here to contribute to the best of my ability to that understanding. We close off by saying that we keep the families who have suffered from this tragic event in our constant prayers and thoughts. Please stay safe on the road. I'll see you on the next one.